I never saw it coming. Not in a million years. My life was simple then, married to Lisa for 5 years. We had a good routine, a cozy house, and I thought she was my forever. We had our fights, sure, but nothing that felt like it could crack what we had. That was until I walked into my mother's funeral. It was a gray, drizzly day. The kind where the sky seems to press down on everything. I could still feel the cold rain on my skin, hear the muffled murmurs of the funeral home, smell the mix of lilies and damp concrete. I was trying to hold it together, just going through the motions when I saw him. Mark, my best friend, just a few feet away from Lisa, whispering into her ear, both of them laughing quietly. I froze, my stomach twisting like I'd been punched. My head spun. I blinked, trying to process what I was seeing. Mark, my closest friend who I'd trusted with my secrets, sharing secrets with my wife during my mother's funeral. It was like someone had shoved a dagger into my gut. I wanted to scream, to run over and rip them apart, but I couldn't move. My legs felt heavy like cement blocks glued to my shoes. I later found out that they'd been sneaking around behind my back for months, months I had no idea about. Looking back, there were small signs. Lisa's strange phone habits, her avoiding me at times, the sudden shift in her scent, more perfume, less familiarity. But I ignored it because I was busy grieving my mother. That day, though, those signs turned into something horrifying. I saw the truth in full color. After the funeral, I stayed in my car, unable to face anyone. My hands were trembling, palms sweaty from the shock. When I finally confronted Lisa that night, her face was unreadable. She looked at me like I was a stranger. "What's wrong?" she asked, voice soft, too soft. I didn't say anything at first. I just handed her the photos I'd secretly taken on my phone, proof of her and Mark's secret meetings. They're sneaking around in places I never knew they even visited. Her eyes widened when she saw the pictures. She stuttered, tried to deny it. "It's not what it looks like," she whispered, tiny voice trembling. I wanted to scream, to tear her words apart, but I just felt numb. My stomach sank into a pit. The betrayal was worse than I'd imagined. They'd been cheating on me behind my back while I was grieving my mother, while I was vulnerable, trying to hold everything together. That night I couldn't sleep. All I could do was replay the moment I saw them, feel the heat of my anger rising, boiling inside. I knew then that I had to do something, something that would hit them where it hurt the most. I needed a plan, a way to make them regret betraying me during my time of grief. The question was, how deep should I go? How much revenge was enough? I didn't want to just break them apart. I wanted to make sure they understood the pain they caused, the damage they'd done to me. I stayed up all night scribbling notes, planning every step. Because they thought they'd gotten away with it, didn't they? They believed I was broken, that I'd just accept it and move on. Well, I wasn't built that way. Not anymore. I was going to turn their deception into their downfall, and I was going to do it quietly, methodically. No shouting, no tearing into them, just enough to make them realize I knew everything. The worst part, deep down, I knew this wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming what was stolen, about taking back my dignity after the most humiliating betrayal I'd ever faced. I felt the cold sweat on my palms as I made my plans. They'd been so careless, so confident that I'd never find out. That was their biggest mistake. Because now I was going to make sure they paid for it, one way or another. The next few days felt like walking through a fog. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lisa's face, her smile twisted into something unrecognizable, and Mark's laugh echoing in my ears. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My stomach was a knot and my palms stayed slick with sweat. But beneath all that chaos, the plan was starting to take shape. I knew I had to be smart about this. No slip-ups, no mistakes. I started gathering everything I needed in quiet. Old receipts, scattered around my desk, became my tools. I printed out screenshots of their secret texts, the times they'd met up, the places they went. The evidence was piling up, and with each piece my resolve hardened. I couldn't let this go. I had to hit them where it hurt, publicly, subtly, with precision. I wanted them to feel the weight of their betrayal, not just once, but every time they looked over their shoulders. One of the key elements was to keep everything under wraps. I didn't want Lisa or Mark to suspect I was onto them. To do that, I created a fake email account, one that sounded innocent, something like Secrets and Mail or Truths Unveiled. It was simple but effective. I started sending anonymous messages, snippets of the evidence I had collected. Nothing direct, just enough to pique curiosity. A paragraph here, a screenshot there. My goal was to make them paranoid, to shake their confidence. I knew Lisa's habits well enough now. She was an emotional woman, easily rattled if she felt exposed. Mark, on the other hand, liked to think he was clever, but I could tell he was nervous when I pressed him about his whereabouts during that week. I planted one of the screenshots in her favorite book, slipped it into her purse when she wasn't looking. When she found it, her face went pale. She looked around frantically, clutching her bag like it was a lifeline. That night I sat back and watched her from a distance. She went into the bathroom, looked at herself in the mirror, then quickly hid the evidence in her pocket. Her hands trembled. I saw her lips tremble and her eyes darted around like she was trying to find a way out. That was the moment I knew I'd hit the mark. I had to push harder, quicker. I wanted her to feel the paranoia, the fear of being caught. Next, I arranged a little surprise for Mark. I went to the place where I'd seen them last, a small cafe downtown. I left a note on his car windshield. It was straightforward. "You can't hide from me forever. We need to talk soon." I watched him from across the street, my fists clenched. His eyes widened when he read it. For a moment, I saw panic flicker across his face. That was exactly what I wanted. To see him sweat, to see him realize I was not just another fool to be played. Lisa's reactions were even more telling. She tried to brush off her trembling hands, to pretend she was fine. But I caught her glancing at her phone every few minutes. I knew I needed to press her further to get her to crack. That's when I sent her an anonymous message telling her I had copies of everything, that I knew her secrets, and I was willing to walk away if she told me the truth. The message was simple, direct, and left her with no room to deny. The tension in our house grew thick. You could cut it with a knife. Lisa was a nervous wreck, pacing the floors, avoiding eye contact. Mark kept looking over his shoulder, which was perfect. Every glance, every hesitation told me I was winning. My chest felt tight, my pulse pounding in my ears. I could taste the coppery sting of adrenaline. I wasn't just planning revenge. I was preparing for the fallout, whatever that might be. The worst part, knowing they probably thought they'd gotten away with it, that I was too broken, too devastated to fight back. That I'd just crawl into a corner and accept it, but I wasn't that guy anymore. I was done hiding. And when the moment came, I would show them exactly how wrong they were, how little they understood about betrayal. I just had to wait for the right time to strike. Waiting was the hardest part. Every second I felt the simmering rage underneath my skin, itching to explode. When I finally saw their defenses weaken, I knew I'd have my chance. I was ready. The waiting wasn't easy. I kept telling myself I was patient, that I was playing everything perfectly. But inside, I was a mess of nerves and anger. Every time Lisa's phone buzzed or Mark hesitated before answering a call, I felt a rush of sick satisfaction. They were cracking, and I was the one applying the pressure. I made sure everything was set up just right. The anonymous emails kept coming, each one more damning than the last, leading them down a winding path of suspicion. I watched Lisa's face turn pale when she read one about a late-night meeting in the park with Mark, her hands trembling as she clutched her phone like it was a lifeline. Mark, meanwhile, seemed increasingly paranoid. His eyes darted everywhere, and he started parking a block away from the cafe, avoiding the scene I had left him the note in. One afternoon, I finally decided to push things further. I wanted them both to feel the full weight of what was happening. I'd already taken pictures of their secret meeting, so I pulled out my laptop, logged into the anonymous email account, and sent a message. "You think you're clever, hiding behind lies, but I've got everything. It's only a matter of time before everyone knows." I hit send and leaned back, my stomach tight with anticipation. That night, Lisa sat alone on the couch, staring at her phone with wide, anxious eyes, her lips pressed into a thin line. She wouldn't look at me directly. When I approached, she flinched. "Who's doing this?" she whispered, voice trembling. I shrugged, trying to sound indifferent. "I don't know, but I know enough. I know what you did. I know how you cheated, how you lied to me during the worst day of my life." I paused, watching her claws dig into her lap. "You thought I'd never find out. That I'd just break and accept it, but I didn't. And now I'm tired of pretending I don't see." She looked down, tears pooling in her eyes. Please, I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't want to hurt me. I cut her off sharply. You were sneaking around with my best friend while I was mourning my mother, the woman who raised me. That's how much you cared, how much you lied. Her voice cracked. It's not what it looks like, I swear, really, because I have proof, I said coldly. I pulled out the photos I'd hidden in my coat pocket. Here. This is what you and Mark have been doing behind my back. While I was crying over my mother, you two were busy sneaking out and lying to my face. Don't bother denying it anymore. I've got the evidence. Her hand shot out trying to grab the phone, but I pulled it away first, holding the pictures out like a weapon, her face drained of color. You're lying. I wish I was, I said, voice low and steady. But I'm not. And you're not going to get away with this. Not anymore. I felt a strange calm settle over me, even as my heart hammered in my chest. I knew I was finally free of the pain, the betrayal. Now I just had to decide what to do with it. I didn't want to destroy everything in one blow. I wanted them to suffer a little to understand how much they'd broken me. That's when I laid out my plan step by step, what I was going to do next. The small, calculated moves that would make them realize I was prepared for everything. I told her I had more evidence, more surprises, and I was ready to play the long game. Lisa's face looked hollow now, her eyelids heavy with despair and anxiety. She looked at me, her voice trembling when she finally spoke. What are you going to do? I looked her dead in the eyes and said, you're going to see. I've got a few tricks up my sleeve. That's when I saw her finally understand that she'd crossed a line she couldn't come back from, and I knew. From that moment on, I was the one holding all the cards. They'd never see it coming, and when they did, it would be too late. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of clarity. Those sleepless nights, the mounting anxiety, they were finally paying off. I had everything I needed, and I was ready to execute the next phase of my plan. I didn't want any more guessing games or uncertainty. I wanted it to hit them like a freight train, loud and unforgiving. First thing, I went to their phones. I'd hidden a small tracking app on both Lisa's and Mark's devices a few days earlier. Nothing obvious, just enough to monitor their movements without raising suspicion. I watched their locations update in real time. Mark was at the same cafe again, reading a newspaper, look of nervousness on his face. Lisa was at the grocery store, but her phone signal traced back to a nearby hotel. That was the confirmation I needed. They were planning something, probably a rendezvous to tie up loose ends. I kept my cool, knowing this was the moment. I had to act fast but precisely. I drove to a nearby park, sat on a bench, and waited. As I watched, I saw Mark step out of the hotel, looking around jittery. A few minutes later, Lisa arrived, her face tense, clutching a small bag. They greeted each other with a quick, secretive hug. My fists clenched as I realized what they were planning, their final cover-up, probably trying to pretend everything was still fine. I took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline rush again. I pulled out a small recorder I'd hidden in my coat pocket and pressed record. I needed proof. I had to be sure I could use this later if I decided to confront them publicly or take legal action. When they left the hotel, I followed, keeping my distance. They headed to a quiet, secluded spot, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. I hid behind some trees, watching as they set up what looked like a small meeting. My blood boiled. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. If I was going to do something drastic, I had to do it now. I stepped out from behind the trees, voice steady but full of fire. Well, 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 looks like I found you. Both froze. Mark's eyes widened in shock. Lisa's face paled to the point of losing all color. I kept my hands visible, palms open, trying not to look as furious as I felt. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I'd just accept your betrayal without a fight? I asked, voice rising just enough to make it clear I wasn't messing around. I've got evidence more than enough, and I've been recording everything you've said and done. So tell me, what's the plan here? Mark looked like he wanted to say something, but words failed him. Lisa swallowed hard, her eyes darting to the ground. You don't get to judge us, she finally whispered. We're not hurting anyone. Oh, really? I snapped. Because while I was drowning in grief, you two were busy sneaking around, lying to my face and planning your little getaway. I'd say that's pretty hurtful. I paused, feeling my voice tighten. You know what's going to happen now? I'm going to give you a choice. You can come clean right here and now or I'll expose everything. And trust me, I've got enough to make your lives hell." They looked at each other, the fear palpable. Lisa's lips quivered. Mark finally spoke, voice trembling. "We didn't mean for it to go this far. We were lonely and it happened. Please. Don't ruin us." I chuckled bitterly. "Ruin you? No, I think you already did that to yourselves. I just want to know what's next. You're not going to walk away clean, not after what I've uncovered." I pointed my phone at them, ready to record their confession if they were willing. Lisa looked like she might cry, but then she straightened her spine. "Fine, do what you want. We're not going to lie anymore." Her voice was shaky, but her eyes held a weird glint of defiance, like she was trying to save face. I knew this wasn't the end, not even close, but I'd made my point. They couldn't deny the truth anymore. I had the proof, the recordings, the evidence. This was their moment of reckoning, and I was going to use it. I took a final mental snapshot of the scene, their faces, their trembling hands, that mix of fear and stubbornness, and I made a vow to myself. This was just the beginning. Whatever came next, I was ready to face it. The fallout hit harder than I expected. I thought confronting them in that abandoned warehouse would be the climax, but it was. The real damage started afterward when I finally released everything. The recordings, the photos, the messages. I knew exactly where to post and how to make it undeniable. And I did it in a way that hit them where it hurt most. Everyone they knew, their social circles, even some of their work colleagues. I spent the entire day drafting a detailed post, careful, precise, with all the proof laid out in chronological order. I didn't want any room for denial. I wanted the truth to be public for everyone to see. I knew that once I hit send, there would be no going back. I was finally free of the silence, of the secret pain I'd been carrying. The moment I pressed post, a rush of adrenaline flooded my veins, my stomach tight with anticipation and dread. Within minutes, messages started flooding in. Friends I'd trusted, family members I never thought would judge me, they all reached out. Some were angry at me, some betrayed, many simply stunned. I could feel their shock vibrating through my phone, but the overwhelming majority sided with me. They saw what I'd shown them, Lisa and Mark's betrayal laid bare. Lisa called me that evening, her voice trembling, trying to sound calm but cracking at the edges. "You had no right," she whispered. "This was all too much. I never wanted this to happen." I kept my tone even, cold even. "You didn't want this. You had 6 months of sneaking around, lying to my face while I was grieving my mother. You think I wanted this, that I planned this?" She gulped. "I'm sorry, okay? I was weak. Mark was there and I just thought I could handle it and it got out of control." I took a deep breath. "No, you decided to betray me and I decided I'd had enough. I wanted everyone to see who you really are." I paused, watching her on the other end of the line, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're not the woman I married. You're someone else entirely." The whole day was a blur of phone calls, messages, and the slow realization that my life was changing forever. I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. The truth was out, yes, but at what cost? Lisa was crying, begging for forgiveness, trying to explain how she'd made a terrible mistake. Mark oddly kept silent, probably realizing that I had all the leverage now. That night I drove to my empty house and took a long, hard look around. The photos I'd secretly taken, the evidence I'd compiled, they were all gone from my phone, but I kept a physical copy. I knew I was done with her lies. I knew I had to walk away for good. I called a lawyer the next morning, filed for divorce, made arrangements to change my locks, and handed over the keys to the house. That was my final act of reclaiming control. I wanted nothing more to do with that house, her, or Mark. I took a deep breath as I handed over the keys, feeling the weight of betrayal finally lifting from my shoulders. I'd cut ties cleanly, decisively. Looking back, I realize I don't regret what I did. It hurts, yeah, it hurts like hell, but I refuse to be a victim of their lies anymore. I learned that sometimes the only way to find peace is to face the truth head-on, no matter how brutal it is. The scars will heal and I'll move on, but I'll never forget the lesson. Honesty, even when it's painful, is always better than hiding behind lies. Weeks have passed since I handed over the keys, since I finally severed the ties that bound me to that nightmare. I won't pretend it's easy. The pain still lingers, sharp as a knife sometimes. But I've started rebuilding my life, piece by piece, focusing on myself instead of their treachery. There's a strange clarity now, like my eyes have finally been opened to what truly matters. I've blocked Lisa and Mark from most of my social media. I don't want their faces popping up in my feed, reminding me of what I lost, what they took from me during the worst day of my life. I've even changed my number, started fresh with new contacts, new routines. The house feels emptier but somehow lighter. The silence doesn't scream anymore. It's just quiet, and that's a relief. Sometimes I catch myself replaying the scene in my head, the confrontation, the recordings, the look on Lisa's face when she realized I knew everything. It's strange how a moment of pure rage can turn into a sense of liberation. I don't regret what I did, I do it all over again if it meant finally reclaiming my dignity. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. Better to burn it all away and start anew. People have asked me if I feel guilty for exposing her. Honestly, I don't. Not anymore. She betrayed me when I was vulnerable, and I refused to be a victim of her lies. I told myself that honesty is always the best route, even if it's painful. That truth, though bitter, set me free. I sleep better now, even if the scars remain. I've started therapy to process everything. Not just the betrayal, but the grief I suppressed over my mother's death. It's strange how intertwined grief and betrayal can become, how one feeds into the other. My therapist says I'm on the right path, that acknowledging pain is the first step to healing. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive Lisa or Mark, but I know I won't let them control my life anymore. Looking back, I realize I learned a lot about myself. I'm stronger than I thought. I was willing to look at the ugly truth, to face the betrayal head-on rather than bury it. That took courage. And I found that sometimes the only way forward is to take the pain, turn it into a lesson, and walk away. To anyone dealing with betrayal, know this. It hurts like hell, but you don't have to let it define you. You're not weak for feeling pain, but you're brave for facing it. Trust takes years to build and seconds to destroy. Protect it, cherish it. If it's gone, don't be afraid to walk away and start over. That's what I did, and I'm finally finding peace in the chaos I once thought would break me. The truth, brutal as it is, ultimately set me free. And in the end, that's all I ever wanted.